What if I told you that giving money to your kids or grandkids, something you've worked your whole life to do, could actually get your pension cut off or reduced? And what if I also told you that most Australians doing this right now have absolutely no idea they're breaking the rules? Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how gifting works under the new 2026 rules, what the legal limits are, and how to give money to your family without Centrelink penalizing you for it. This is one of the most misunderstood areas in all of Australian retirement planning, and getting it wrong is incredibly costly. So let's get into it. First, let me tell you why this matters more right now than it ever has before. We are sitting in a period where the cost of living has pushed more Australian families to lean on their parents and grandparents for financial help. Adult children are struggling to get into the housing market. Grandkids need help with school fees or university costs, and retirees who have worked hard and accumulated some savings genuinely want to help. That instinct is beautiful. But Centrelink has a very specific set of rules about how much you can give away, and if you exceed those limits, they will treat the excess as if you still own it. That means your pension gets reduced or cut off entirely based on money you no longer have. That is the gifting trap, and it catches thousands of Australians every single year. So let's start with the foundation. What exactly are the gifting rules? Under the current Social Security framework, which applies as we move through 2026, a pensioner or someone applying for the age pension is allowed to gift up to $5,000 in any single financial year, or up to $10,000 over a rolling 5-year period. Those are the free area limits. If you stay within those limits, Centrelink does not penalize you. The gift is treated as a legitimate disposal of an asset, and it simply reduces your assessable assets by that amount. Straightforward enough. But here is where people get into serious trouble. The moment you exceed those limits, let's say you give your daughter $20,000 to help with a house deposit. Centrelink does not just ignore the excess. They apply what is called a deprivation assessment. That means the $15,000 over the limit is treated as a deprived asset. Centrelink adds it back into your assessable assets and income for a period of 5 years from the date of the gift. 5 years. So even though that money is sitting in your daughter's bank account, Centrelink acts as if it's still sitting in yours, and your pension is reduced accordingly for that entire 5-year period. Now, I want you to really sit with that for a moment, because it is more serious than most people realize. If you're on a full-age pension and you gift $50,000 to a child in one financial year, the excess of $40,000 gets added to your assessable assets. Under the assets test deeming rates, that could reduce your fortnightly pension payment significantly every fortnight for 5 years. When you add that up, the financial cost of that gift could actually exceed the amount you gave away. You tried to help your family, and you ended up worse off than if you had done nothing. So what has changed or tightened up in 2026 that you need to know about? The core gifting thresholds themselves, the $5,000 per year and $10,000 over 5 years, have not changed dramatically in their structure. But what has changed is how aggressively Centrelink is cross-checking financial transactions, how data sharing between the ATO and Services Australia has been strengthened, and how thoroughly financial reviews are being conducted when people claim or reclaim pension entitlements. The era of slipping a gift under the radar without it being noticed is effectively over. Bank transactions are visible. Property title transfers are recorded. Large cash movements between family members get picked up. If you are thinking that you can just quietly help your kids financially and nobody will ask about it, I need you to reconsider that assumption in 2026. Let me also address a very common myth that I hear all the time. People say, "It's fine, I'll just call it a loan, not a gift. I'll write up a loan agreement and Centrelink will never know." I understand why people think this works. But Centrelink has very specific rules about what constitutes a genuine loan versus what is effectively a gift dressed up in paperwork. For a loan to be treated as a genuine loan by Centrelink, it needs to have a written agreement in place before the money is transferred, a genuine repayment schedule that is actually being followed, and ideally a commercial interest rate, or at minimum a documented reason why interest is not being charged. If you lend your son $100,000 with no written agreement, no repayment schedule, and payments that never actually happen, Centrelink will reclassify that as a gift and apply deprivation rules. The paperwork has to be real, and it has to be in place from the beginning. Now let's talk about some of the legitimate strategies that do work, because this is not all doom and gloom. There are absolutely legal ways to be generous with your family while protecting your pension entitlements. The first and most obvious is simply to plan your giving over time rather than in lump sums. If you want to give your child $20,000, consider giving $5,000 this financial year and $5,000 the next, and so on. Spread across 4 years, the full $20,000 sits comfortably within the allowable gifting limits, and none of it attracts a deprivation assessment. It requires patience, but it works, and it's completely legitimate. The second strategy is to give in ways that Centrelink doesn't classify as a gift at all. For example, paying for goods and services directly can be structured differently from transferring cash. If you pay your grandchild's school fees directly to the school, or you pay for a family member's medical expenses directly to the provider, these transactions sit in a different category to simply handing over cash or transferring money into someone's bank account. Always get advice on how specific transactions will be classified before you make them, but this is a real and legitimate area of planning. The third strategy, and this one is particularly powerful for people who are not yet on the pension, is to make larger gifts well before you enter the pension system. Remember that deprivation assessments last for 5 years. If you gift money today and you are 5 or more years away from claiming the pension, by the time you lodge your claim, the deprivation period will have expired, and the gift will no longer affect your entitlements at all. This is why retirement planning in your early to mid-60s, not the year you turn 67, is so critically important. The decisions you make 5, 6, 7 years out from retirement can create enormous flexibility that you simply won't have if you wait until the last minute. The fourth thing to understand is that not all asset reductions are classified as gifts. Spending money on yourself, renovating your home, taking a holiday, paying down debt, is not a gift. Centrelink is not penalizing you for living your life and spending your own money. The rules specifically target the disposal of assets to other people, so if you want to use some of your savings in retirement, spending it on your own lifestyle is completely different from giving it away, and understanding that distinction matters. There is also a really important point about couples that many people overlook. The gifting rules apply to a couple jointly, not per person. So a couple cannot each gift $5,000 separately and claim $10,000 of total gifting in a year without it counting as exceeding the individual limit. The $5,000 per year and $10,000 over 5 years is the combined limit for a couple assessed together under the pension system. Getting this wrong is extremely common and can lead to unexpected deprivation assessments. I also want to address inheritances briefly, because this is something people ask about constantly. If you receive an inheritance while you are on the pension, that inheritance becomes an assessable asset and your pension may be adjusted. If you then give that inheritance to your children immediately after receiving it, Centrelink will assess it as a gift, and deprivation rules apply. Receiving money and immediately passing it on does not allow you to avoid the gifting rules. The money enters your assessable assets first, and any disposal above the limits triggers the deprivation assessment. Here is my overall message to you. Generosity is one of the most wonderful things about Australian families. The desire to help your children and grandchildren is something to be proud of. But that generosity needs to be structured intelligently, because the cost of getting it wrong doesn't just fall on you. It falls on the very family members you were trying to help when your pension reduces and your financial security in retirement is compromised. Get proper advice, plan your gifting years in advance, document everything, understand the limits, and never assume that because you've always done things a certain way, Centrelink isn't paying attention. In 2026, they absolutely are. If this video helped you understand the gifting rules more clearly, Please share it with a parent, a grandparent, or anyone you know who is approaching retirement. And subscribe so you don't miss the next video, where I go deep on the assets test and exactly how different types of assets affect your pension calculation. Your retirement deserves to be protected. Let's make sure it is.